Welcome to Bucket Bites. I'm Ryan Post, and with me I've got Josh Picard from Suggestive Gaming. Yes, sir. We've got Adam and Jeremy from WayForward also joining us here today. And I guess, Josh, I'm going to let you kind of lead into this today because this has been kind of something we've been working up to just for like the last month or so. And you just recently did a video over on the Suggestive Gaming YouTube channel for the ClockTower series.
Yeah, so first off, I want to thank WayForward for giving me the excuse to finally make a ClockTower video because I've been wanting to. It's been like my theoretical Halloween special for years. I've been wanting to do it, and when I heard about ClockTower Rewind, it's like, all right, now's the time. I'm finally jumping on it. So I got to dive deep into the entire ClockTower series, not just the first one, and then really get into the franchise. Learn to love it because it is an acquired taste, I won't lie, but once you really get past kind of the rough edges, it's a fantastic franchise. And I really stressed in the video, a lot of those edges are gone now thanks to you guys, so there's no excuse. Go play ClockTower. It's fantastic. So thank you again.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the kind words.
Of course. So yeah, I guess we could start with a couple of introductions here, just so we can get that out of the way. Adam, why don't you go ahead and lead the way? Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Adam Tierney. I'm from WayForward. I've been there about 20 years now. Believe it or not, it's pretty much my only adult job. And I came in as an animator, became a director for most of the 20 years, and now I oversee our biz dev and our publishing group.
Excellent. And how about you, Jeremy?
I'm Jeremy Pryer. I am QA manager at WayForward, kind of work on all the different games. I also did some production role on ClockTower Rewind. And I've worked here for at least 10 years now. It's a blur, but I think it was almost 10 years ago exactly, I think, because it was right before Christmas.
Well, happy 10 years.
Yeah, Mazel Tov.
Did you get a little pen or something, just as a thank you for 10 years, or?
I've talked to our CEO about that, and he's totally down, but just we've been so busy we never planned that out. Yeah, we should bring that back up with Voldy. He was totally down with doing anniversary gifts. I don't think anyone ever suggested it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just say that working on ClockTower Rewind has been my anniversary.
There you go. That's cool. Well, yeah, you're a huge horror. I mean, looking at the background, it's very clear that you are a horror fan. Well, at least for sure Resident Evil, but it's incredible.
In general, I love horror properties. Yes.
It's like, can you just reach back and just prove that that's not art, just for the record, because it's that is the coolest effing thing. Just throwing it out there. Because I thought it was AI art when you first popped up. So that's incredible.
Backlight.
There you go.
So that actually gets into one of the questions I wanted to ask. So I'm sure, Jeremy, that given you're obviously a survival horror game fan, I'm sure you obviously were aware of ClockTower, probably a fan before it came to WayForward.
Yes.
So I was wondering, what was the process like to get ClockTower remade? Did you go to them? Did they come to you? What did that look like?
Well, actually, I mean, Adam, you might be able to speak to this most, but we
decided on it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, we did a remake. So most of the remakes that we do are games that we've made originally. So we recently ported Double Dragon Neon and Boy and His Blob and Blood Rain Betrayal to modern consoles. Those are games where we did the original development. But a couple years ago, we did what we released as River City Girls Zero, is based on a Super Famicom game called Kunio Tachi no Banka, and it was the first Kunio-kun game that involved the River City Girls characters, kind of inspired our game. We didn't make that game, but we ported it to modern consoles, did the animated intro and all that, and then ever since then we've been talking what is the next game that we wanted to do, and we're typically looking for games that are a lot of people know about them, but have never really received an official US release. And pretty much from the get-go, right at the top of the list was ClockTower, the original Super Famicom version.
Yes.
And then Jeremy, you could talk kind of about what was appealing about that title to us.
I mean, it having won a fandom out here, and the sequels that did make its way out here, and never having the original. But I mean, there were a lot of people, myself included, that played the game through some emulation back in the day, and it was just unlike anything we've ever experienced at that time. So being able to bring that over with like new localizations was really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, between Josh and I, we have two different levels of our knowledge with the universe for ClockTower. So, me obviously being the new one, can you like explain ClockTower just a little bit? You know, that might be a loaded question, but you know, I've never set foot into the Barrows Mansion before, and if that's the case, I know others haven't also. So, like, can you just give us just a quick, like, what is ClockTower?
You are one of a handful of girls that's just been adopted by Simon Burrows, and arrive at his clock tower mansion, and things get very unnatural and scary very fast. I don't want to give too much away. There is a reoccurring antagonist that does stalk you throughout your experience as you try to solve the mystery, and there is a lot of choices that you make and actions you could do that change the experience. Like there's 8 or 9 endings into this game based on your own actions and how you advance through it.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that you know, people are now used to with modern Silent Hill games and Biohazard and everything. Really, this was one of the first games to kind of do those like minutia, right, Jeremy? Little things where it's like, oh, well, you took this turn, or you tried to open this door, or you took this action, completely changing the ending and the outcome and the events that unfold.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about ClockTower actually is that looking out a window changes your ending.
Yep.
Like that's yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you decide to look out this window, you get a different ending.
Yeah.
There's also like one of the endings you can get super early just by like kind of doing what I think a lot of us would do in that situation. We won't spoil it, but it's very funny that it's not just like you can go 95% of the way through the game and then there's little twists at the very end. No, you can get like completely different outcomes very early based on what you do.
Yeah, if you've ever watched a horror movie and you're like, why doesn't the protagonist just do this?
Yeah.
You can do that. It's actually pretty great.
That's crazy. So I know I'm newbie. I've been busy, but I've actually added the game to my Steam library because I'm going to be playing it over the Christmas holiday here because I got some time off. And I need to know, because I did not play the original, was there anything, you know, that was from the original that you guys either cut out or that you have added like unreleased stuff back in? Or
Yes, to the second part. So I will say that the original Super Famicom version of the game exists as it did in an original mode. So you could play it all the way like it was, except now with localization. Or you could play
without
the new
localization. You could even play it as the original Japanese.
That is true. You could also play original Japanese.
And that's a brand new localization, right?
Yes.
For everything but Japanese.
Right.
And you could also switch to rewind mode. And a rewind mode, basically there was the original Super Famicom version, and then in Japan they also had a PlayStation 1 port, and they had a PC port. And as they were doing some of the ports, there was some new content that was put in. We actually backported that content back into the original game into the new rewind mode. Rewind mode has a few other quality of life changes and bug fixes, but it also features now content that wasn't in the original Super Famicom version, and even some content that existed in the code but wasn't even being used in the later ports.
A lot of the stuff that's come out over the decades since it was released, from data miners or people just looking at like old behind the scenes materials, anything we could get our hands on, we tried to make it part of that expanded experience.
And a thing I loved about that is I saw the update that you guys added with the like sample demo added in afterwards. So like the preservation aspect is actually like super impressive. And I mean, WayForward has a history of that, like especially with the Shantae series. Like I really love the modern releases of those that incorporate like the Game Boy Advance features you wouldn't even know about. So having those different versions, every kind of release, all of the different media all in one package is such an incredible experience. So I was wondering, what goes into your guys' process of finding these things to include in these, in the museum section of, ClockTower Rewind? Like, how much is preservation part of your process?
Yeah, that's a really good word, and that's how we took it, is this, and also River City Girls Zero, and now we've got a couple other potential projects that we're working on that would be the next kind of game that didn't originate with us, but we're bringing it to a Western audience. It's about preservation, and so that's why, because actually for both of them, for River City Girls Zero and this one, because we were making some changes, we wanted to keep the vanilla version available so that people who just purely want to play exactly what it was, but never had the opportunity, or want to play exactly what it was, but just with an English translation, can do that. And then beyond that, it's really just everything we can find. So for example, the thing you mentioned about the kiosk demo, that was something that came Jeremy's way very late in development, where basically one of our friends got access to essentially a 3-stage store kiosk demo from Japan, right?
Yeah, very, very expensive piece for collectors online. And it was when we announced this project, we got thankfully a lot of fan support. And part of that was, there's a group called Team Cuts. They're all about trying to preserve everything about the Clock Tower series. Before our announcement, there wasn't a lot going on, but they would get anything they could, and they stumbled upon access to that. They quickly gave us the ROM. They're like, "Hey, would you like this for the game?" We're like, "Oh yes, yeah, we'd love to. We'd love to throw it in."
And then
So it was
aside
just
from that,
perfect timing.
yeah, and then some other stuff we found. So, with River City Girls and Yars Rising and some of our other games, we've really gotten into this style of like motion comic style animation sequences, almost kind of like, we were initially inspired by what Fully Cooley did in the animation, and everybody remembers that manga sequence. And rather than do something new on this, Jeremy was aware of like, oh, they'd made some old comics way back when, and it was kind of funny. Like, he and I had to track them down, so they're not just like, available anywhere. Like, one of them is only in a booklet in the collector's edition, PlayStation edition in Japan, and then the other one we had to get some even more obscure, like mini size strategy guide from Japan from like 20 years ago, and we tracked those down, bought them, scanned them in, and then gave them to our VFX group, and they fully animated them. And that's an area where we were able to cast and add full VO in English, because we didn't necessarily want to do full VO for the full game, just because, I mean, that's really drastically changing it, and that's also a pretty big undertaking. But we felt like, okay, this area where it's a lot of dialogue, and it's kind of one scene sets up the game, and then one scene replays a pivotal scene from later in the game, we could actually get some full VO, get some music compositions, and really bring those to life in kind of a similar way that we've done on some other WayForward games recently.
So I did want to talk about that a lot, actually, is the both that and the animated opening, but we'll get to the animated opening. What I really loved about the motion comic, like you said, wasn't just that it was, because you have like the full scans in there from the original, and then you can watch the animated version with full VO. And what I was wondering was, what was the casting process like for that? Because you've got, and you said you can't cast, or you can't VO the whole game because that's sacrilegious. You can't do it. So you must realize that when you're going into, even the motion comic aspect of it. So I was wondering what casting looked like for that, what you guys went into.
So basically, we knew what the dialogue was from the comics, and we were already getting it localized. And so we worked with, our localization studios. We also work with Haro Shintani, does a lot of our localization. I believe she did the Japanese to English translation. And actually, the person who's really missing from this interview, in addition to myself and Jeremy, is Mariel Cartwright. She was essentially kind of the director of the project and animated and did most of the work on the intro herself. And so, yeah, we between Shantae and River City Girls, we really have casting kind of down to a science for how we like to do it. And so we just worked through Christina V, who does most of our casting, and we just had the character roles described. She takes the sample dialogue, sends it out, to hundreds of potential actors, and then we essentially just listened to all of those, and where we landed with a handful of actors was mostly the voices that Mario liked, especially for Kat Pratano voices the main character, and then we actually got Jeremy Gab. Did Gab come through you or
No.
Aaron? I forget.
Aaron got us Gab.
Yeah, and so it's Gab Smulders, right? Is
Yes.
a streamer, does a lot of horror stuff online. Again, we had a great connection there, and so we said, hey, do you want to do a small role in the game? We also got Jenny Yokobori, who was our lead in Yara's Rising, and she did a small role in the game. So yeah, it's kind of just a combination of, we did full casting for Jennifer for the, and then the last one, of course, is Susie Hunter.
That's
voices,
the one that came through me.
Exactly, and Susie voices Miss Mary, very critical role as well. So we did full casting for Jennifer because we are hoping that if this goes really well, that maybe we can do a full new ClockTower game in the future, and it would be great to know, Jennifer's VA for that. And then the rest were kind of grabbing people that we had worked with recently or that we were connected with.
Yeah, I did want to point out actually that thanks for including the horror YouTubers, because that was like especially seeing Susie pop up was really cool. So future games.
Yeah, she was so excited to be a part of it, and she was very helpful along the way. We were constantly, in dialogue with her as we were working on the project.
And that's cool getting, the fandom involved even in that aspect. That's shows the care.
Yeah.
And what's funny, you kind of answered one of my questions, was if you guys had any thoughts or desires to like take this opportunity with this IP and maybe not change up the mechanics, to something a little bit more modern styled, but like to make a whole new ClockTower. Like, is that kind of the hope and intention maybe?
I mean, the hope with any game that we do is that we get to do more of them. Like, I can't think of a single game we've done where we're like, oh, we don't want to touch this again. We always want to have the possibility of doing more of them. But yeah, with this one, there have been the sequels, and then there was the Haunting Grounds kind of pseudo sequel, but we really would like to do something that taps into the original, either a remake of it or something that is just like a WayForward version of it. And it's funny, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but when you get to the end credits, or when you load up the end credits for the game, not the original game's end credits, but our credits, because we have to credit everybody that worked on the title, we had told Mariel that she had to do some kind of visual for it, and what she settled on was she reanimated the core mobility of Jennifer, but doing it high-res 2D animation. She was the lead animator on Skullgirls and Indivisible and so many other like amazing Disney-style animated games. And she said after she had worked on that to us that, oh yeah, part of why I did that is I wanted to get it in people's minds what Jennifer in these actions might look like in HD, so that people start kind of, chatting about like, oh, they should do like a full-on sequel for it. So hopefully that works.
What was it difficult to, like, you guys decided, hey, we want to do this. This was all internal. You wanted to do this. Was it difficult to get access to the IP?
This one wasn't too difficult, right? I feel like this one was relatively, I mean, we talked with Sunsoft first, I believe, and they were on board pretty early on from what I remember.
Yeah, I think on this one it was because we work with Limited Run quite a bit. They do most of our physicals, and I think they had just signed a broader deal with Sunsoft, and so they were already connected there. So it's a combination of that, and then also Jeremy's friend Alex, who works on a lot of our Japanese products with Limited Run, was already very well connected over there. So we had some good early meetings with Sunsoft, and also an early meeting with Kono-san, the director of the game. And so before we did any real major work, I got to have lunch with him in Japan, so cool. And we got to talk about the project. And then later on, we actually got him more formally involved, and even sat him down for an interview on the title. Jeremy, you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I will also note that when Adam had that lunch, he got my copy of ClockTower signed.
Nice.
In the other room.
Yes.
But yeah, no, we got to do the interview. We did have also another horror streamer, Selena. She did the Silent Hill transmissions. She was known for that, but she's a mutual of mine as well. And also my buddy Alex, he knows her. We got her involved to do the interview, and we got a lot of questions from between us. And we also went to some popular fans and asked them, like, hey, if you had the chance to ask a question, what would it be? So we took a bunch of questions, gave them all to him, and did that whole interview with him, which was fantastic.
I was wondering how far along in the process was he aware, and what was his reaction to learning that it was, coming to a modern audience?
He was aware of it very early on. So I don't remember exactly if it was before or after we signed with Sunsoft, but it was the very first lunch around Tokyo Game Show was before we were in full production on it for sure. So it was like right at the start of it. The interview with him we did much later, but and then we also had him contracted as a consultant too. So over the course of the project, if we had any questions for him, or at one point we were kind of clarifying about the original cover art, and is this supposed to be Mary or Jennifer, and is there any do we have access to the original source art or anything like that? Whenever we had questions about the original production, we could hit him up about that. But yeah, he was involved from pretty close to the beginning. I don't remember whether it was like immediately after or before it became a formal project, but like 2 years ago now, I think.
What was the overall development time for this? Just kind of curious.
Yeah, about 2 years, I think. Yeah, from first asking about it to releasing the product. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, because the brain wanders. What if you guys had like unlimited resources on this thing? Would you still have done it pretty much the same way you did it, as like a faithful, just as Josh said before, just kind of bringing it back to the modern people and cataloging it basically, or would you have done something bigger?
I mean, if we had a full budget, I think we would do a full production. But I think this might have always been the first step, because what we don't want to do is just barge in and change everything and overhaul it, or at least we want to be very careful about that. I mean, we have had something like I think everybody generally liked our DuckTales remastered game, and that was just jumping straight to the remastered version. Or you take something like River City Girls, where we're kind of putting our version of Kunio-kun River City Ransom out there. But yeah, I mean, this would be my preferred approach, is doing something like this where we're really being very respectful to the original one and letting people first experience the original version of it rather than just jumping straight to the WayForward version. That said, yeah, if somebody wants to give us a couple $1 million, we'll dive right into doing the full sequel.
The people on the internet are kind of crazy, so like, especially like dedicated fans to any kind of IP or any kind of game, movie, media, right? So
trust me, I know.
Are you one of them?
No.
I don't believe you. Speaking of the people, how has the response been this far? Because the game released roughly a month ago-ish, month and a half.
About two. It was on Halloween, right?
It was on. Okay.
Yeah.
It was about a week before Halloween. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So how's the fan response been for you guys?
So far, all I've seen has been positive myself.
Good.
Yeah, I think the only thing that has been not even negative, but every now and then we'll see like a Steam comment from somebody saying, "Oh, it looks so old. Like they could have at least redone the visuals, or they could have at least redone the controls or something." But then almost 100% of the time, then somebody else, not even a WayForward employee, jumps in and says, "No, this is cool. Like this is why," and they're preserving it and they want us to experience it. So I think, if anything, just the job that Jeremy and the rest of our publishing group have done in terms of messaging is really resonating, because it really seems to be taking on that people are like, oh, okay, they're not just trying to make this the most modern version possible. They're trying to preserve this and then expand the audience for people that never formally got to play it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the negative feedback might just come from the original game, and aging, which unfortunately happens with modern audiences. But at the same time, like you said, at least people are stepping in and saying, no. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's like a black and white movie. You don't colorize it.
Exactly. We did also find, Jeremy and I were both, we do a lot of the convention work for the company. We did find that it is not an ideal game for comic conventions, because we do a lot of demoing. And so we did LA Comic Con, and we had one station with ClockTower and one station with River City Girls, the Double Dragon DLC. And of course, that's one that's just like hitting you over the head with the action and personality. It's so fast paced, and you can dive in for 30 seconds and have fun. And then right next to it is this game that really is best played by yourself alone in a dark room, and you kind of need to sit down and play for like a good 10-15 minutes before you kind of get into the groove. So luckily there were people that showed up that would just sit there at the station and play it for 20-30 minutes, and we just let them. We thought, oh, that's fantastic. But that was the one thing that we kind of noticed, is like, oh yeah, this is a tough one for 30-second impressions at a comic convention.
Yeah,
like I said, for some it could be an acquired taste, but
yeah.
You get there.
Especially for kids these days, I tell you, if it's not flashing lights at you and you're not running on walls, it's just it's not
what we should have done is we should have taken the original game, Jeremy, and then just everywhere you walk, just coins spill out everywhere, and you're tapping them with your finger and collecting them.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, we should have TikTok-ified it.
Yeah. Have some soft currency, hard currency, pinch points.
Oh no, okay, we're giving them bad ideas. No, this is not for the sequel. Just putting that out there. This is not sequel ideas, people. Oh, is it? I hope not.
No.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
Just circling back around, I did want to talk about the opening animation as well. So I love talking to you guys because you're very cautious about spoilers. So that leaves me to wonder, how did you pick the scenes and what to show, and how to re-envision these 2D side-scrolling, cutscenes, if you can call them that, into a full 2D animation?
Oh, geez. I don't know that either of us are the best to answer that. I think Mary.
Most of it kind of came from Mariel. So she directed the sequence and also did most of the hand animation herself, and then worked with other artists in terms of the backgrounds and the coloring and stuff. But I think it was just looking at everything we had and looking for those iconic moments. So the again, don't want to spoil too much, but the visuals of the scissors on the wall, the visuals of the crows flying up, and she kind of strung it all together. And the process for that is doing a rough storyboard first, and then that would go to everybody on the team, especially myself and Jeremy, to give feedback. And then from there it goes to an animatic, and then it goes to rough animations, and we went through every step of the process on it. But I don't really remember any course correction from us. We were just kind of every step was wow, that looks amazing.
Good job.
Yeah, I
guys.
think she did a really good job. She picked out so many, and some of them very quick shots, but every kind of iconic location, to the point where when we were circling back and getting achievement art made, I realized, well, we have all that art. It's the opening. You literally have screenshots for almost every single area where I put some kind of achievement or a reference to something. It's we already have it. We don't even need anything.
And that's why I wanted to ask about that, because the intro does show you all of those quick shots of these things, and they're out of context, not spoiler, but once you play the game, it's so cool to see that in that different perspective and with that phenomenal art.
Yeah. And I forget, the one thing that we did do before she kind of got started is we produced the song before she started working on the visuals. And so we knew that we wanted 2 original vocal songs, because that's just kind of what we've been doing recently on our products. And, it's great to, again, collaborate with really talented people. And so myself, as a big Silent Hill fan over the years, I immediately from the beginning of this project said, we got to get Mary McGlynn to do the singing, because she's, in my mind, she's the voice of horror in terms of singing all of her amazing Silent Hill songs. So we were already connected with her. We had worked with her on a couple of projects, including a Silent Hill project, and reached out, and she was totally down to do our vocals. And then we worked with our amazing composer Dale North. He created a new audio instrumental version of kind of the theme of the game. And then we worked with Riorka, who is a great lyricist that Dale and Mariel knew. She composed some lyrics, and then we got Mary to sing them, and it was just amazing. Like as soon as we heard that, it was just mind blowing. So we did that first. We got the song in place, and then from there, Mariel took that and started figuring out visuals for it.
And I gotta say, like, that was another. I'm glad you brought up the song, because it, like, that theme is so iconic to the ClockTower series. So adding lyrics to it, and it's hard to explain it without hearing it underneath this. So I hope I add it in post. But like that melody, you wouldn't think to add lyrics to. It's just like this fast-paced thing that's kind of heart racing that gets you going because you're being chased, and somehow arranging that into a title theme that has, and I mean this as a compliment, but like a haunting Bond theme type vocal over it is just, it shouldn't make sense, and it does, and it's perfect. And I just wanted to express that to you guys.
We like just being weird and experimenting. And I mean, my God, it's like, even if you've never heard any of Mary's songs before, how immediately just entrancing is her voice. There's no voice like hers, other than we got another incredible singer for the end credits, which you could talk about, Jeremy.
Emmy Evans. Yeah, she's obviously I think most known for Nier. Really amazing. And that song that surprised a lot of people, because we put that in the second trailer. We saved the final trailer. I think we used the front end song, but we put the credit one in the second trailer, and it's a much slower, sad song.
Yeah, very, very intimate, and feels more like it's almost like the first song is more about like the experience in the house, but the second song feels very specific to Jennifer, like as a character, I think.
And both are, I mean, again, both just set the stage for both starting the game and then wrapping it up, like bookending the experience. It's just perfect. And again, going to the preservation aspect of it, having the original soundtrack in there as well, fantastic.
Yeah, we got a jukebox on this one. We didn't have that on River City Girls 0. So as we keep doing these port pluses, we're going to look for more special features that we can do. And that was one of the cool things is, so you could just listen to the both of the new songs and the new audio that was composed for the 2 motion comic scenes, and then all the original audio.
And I was actually going to ask, so is there any things that you wanted to include but couldn't, or in the past you wanted to do that you were able to do with this one that you can then take to maybe something you do in the future?
I can't think. I mean, can you think of anything that got left on the floor?
Nothing that got left on the floor. I mean, obviously there's always like, I'd love to do more. I would love for this to have the PS1 First Sphere port, the PS1 audio, the Wonder Swan version, the Windows version, all the goofy stuff that no one would ever really play. But just to have, but it was never like the plan with this. The plan with this was to give the definitive way to play the original, preserve that, and give like, hey, here's a fun new version of it.
Yeah, and we're also relatively new at this. WayForward is still predominantly like an original developer, working closely with Carbon team from LRG on this. So they're actually doing most of the programming. We're more WayForward on the creative side. But I mean, you look at like some of the absolute rock stars of porting, like Digital Eclipse and M2 in Japan, and they will do like I have the one of my prized possessions is the M2 treasure box on PlayStation 2 where they did Gunstar Heroes. And like Jeremy said, it was just, you can load up this like super low res Game Gear port of Gunstar on the PS2 version. And you probably play it for like a minute or two. You're like, all right, I got the idea, because it's not that good compared to the console one. It'd be cool to do that stuff, but definitely, we're still dipping a toe in it. So it's more about where can we get the bang for our buck, and then also play to WayForward strengths, because we can do stuff like cast some great VO or get some songs or do an amazing 1-minute animated intro. That's definitely in our wheelhouse more than some of the more technical stuff. But yeah, aside from, like Jeremy said, like additional versions, I can't think of anything that we wanted to do and weren't able to. And then we even just kept adding more stuff as we went along, like the kiosk demo and some of the extra features and gameplay and stuff.
So I do have to ask. So looking forward, what's the dream? What's the dream remake in the future?
We can't say a lot of them because we're exploring.
I don't mean something you're doing. I just mean in your brain.
So I mean the one. Well, there's one that we can say just because it started as the number one on our list, and we'll never be able to do it. So you could talk about that, Jeremy.
Yeah, we would love if it was possible. If it was possible, it's not possible. We would love to bring Sweet Home to audiences out in the U.S. Obviously, that one is. I mean, it's the reason why Resident Evil even exists to this day. But I mean, we looked into it. It was our number one choice. We looked into it. It's just not possible for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, less so about the game and more about the movie it's based on and some of the rights issues around there.
Yeah,
that's wild. I wouldn't even think of that.
But yeah, that one, and then so I mean, I think a lot of the ones that we're looking at now too, we're kind of looking at like where we have experience. So now we've done 2 Super Famicom games, so we know that inside and out. I think we would be more likely to do Super Famicom games or do Game Boy games, stuff that Carbon Team is has lots of experience on. I think it might be more challenging to do something that was like a PS1 game or a Saturn game or something a little more advanced. But yeah, I mean, just anything that, again, our criteria is like something that people know, something that they want to play, or maybe they've played it a bunch, but just never officially or never in English. And then something that we can debut in the US and European market. So as long as there's like that perfect sweet spot of like people want this, people know about it, but it's never quite been here. That's what I think we want to do for those. I think we'd be less inclined to do something that, you've already played 4 or 5 versions of it on various, ports and stuff. That's already been done to death.
And again, it goes back to the preservation aspect that's insanely, I don't want to like oversell it, but it's almost noble. Like that you're giving people official ways to play these games where, the average gamer isn't going to know to go to romhack whatever to get the English patch for ClockTower to play it on this emulator. But going on to Steam, paying $20 for the best experience, there's no competition.
Yeah, and we really do take it seriously to the point where, and this actually came more from Carbon Team, we are not grabbing a ROM as a starting point. We're always purchasing the original cart, doing our own dump ourselves, just because we don't want to have any risk that, the common version of the game out there was tweaked in some way that we're unaware of, or that they compress something and it's slightly different. We always want to go to like the absolute source version for our starting point.
And that's wild because you get companies like Konami that even will just put, ROMs from the or from the scene onto their collections, and it's wild.
Yeah. Plus, it's an excuse for us to buy the carts too, and like have the original thing. It was actually funny that Jeremy mentioned like he has his version signed by Kono-san that actually bit us in the butt because we did the scans for the front, and then the initial scans that we did were a little, I think they caught a little bit of light in the scanner, so we had to redo them. But the problem was we had to redo the scan and it already had a signature, so I had to like go through and meticulously like Photoshop out Kono-san's signature and get it back to the original version for our in-game scan.
Should have left it in. We
should have, but then it's just you're just bragging to the world.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's great. Josh, I guess, did you have anything else on your list? I really only had one other question.
I think we covered everything. I mean, I'm obviously super excited for everything WayForward is going to do in the future. I've been a fan for ages. I mean, I played the first Shantae on Game Boy Color, so I go way back. By the way, I do want to thank you for bringing up Book of Memories at one point. That game does not get enough credit, and it deserves it.
Thank you.
That was like probably I played through all of the Silent Hill games, and that was the last one I played because I had to figure out how to capture it. But when I played it, it was a perfect refresher over everything, and I loved it. So thank you for that, and also The Brave and the Bold, because that's my favorite Batman game.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of both of those. The Silent Hill one was weird because, if we could have done any Silent Hill game, we would have done a pretty traditional one, or like a traditional one with like an interesting story. But I think we've said in interviews a number of times, like that was the assignment. So when it came to us, it was like, hey, Konami wants you to do a Silent Hill, and they want you to do a 4-player auto-generated multiplayer, dungeon crawler from an overhead perspective. So like all that was built into it. And we actually tried at the beginning to make it as faithful as possible, and it just didn't work because when you're zoomed out in like a Diablo 3 perspective, then like a slow walking nurse in a hallway is just like, well, hurry up and get over here. And so it was we kind of had this identity crisis at one point where I think it was about maybe a third of the way into development, and I remember just talking with the group, and it's like, it's not going to work. We gotta embrace the fun. And so that's when at that point we started making things more arcadey, making them run around, making things explode, making it more almost Smash TV like. And of course, from one perspective, that makes it even more sacrilege because it's like, oh my god, that is not what I wanted from Silent Hill at all. But at the end of the day, we had to make the best game possible for what the game was. I'm definitely I like what we came up with, but I definitely have like conflicted emotions about it because it was very clearly despised by a lot of the established gamers just because it was such a 180 from what they wanted. But at the end of the day, we still made a Silent Hill game, so that's a cool little notch on WayForward's belt.
I was just gonna say that's good to have on your resume, but and again, like it was a departure for sure. But I loved what it captured about like the Book of Memories actually in the plot. Like I love that as a plot device. And I just love the game as a portable, Vita title. That game didn't, or that platform did not get enough,
No, and we got to do early on with it. It wasn't a launch title, but it was a launch window one, I believe, came out like maybe within the first year. And doing stuff like doing anything with a morality meter, that's awesome. Like again, going back to like what ClockTower was doing and kind of kicked off for that, the horror industry, having your actions make you veer towards one direction or another in terms of endings. We got to play with a lot of that stuff. I remember, I think like your constant morality meter of good versus evil in Book of Memories, I think it was something like, Jeremy, it's like a dozen factors that are like factoring into it at one point. It's like which enemy you're attacking and your alignment and the weapon and your buffs and the story choices you made. So like every time you stab an enemy or punch an enemy, how your meters are affected is like a dozen different things all kind of like gelling together. So it was cool to play with that stuff. And then it was also, I really liked the little spooky scare rooms. But that was kind of, we put those in a bit to basically be, all right, we can't do a traditional Silent Hill, but what if you go into a room and for like 2 minutes it's a traditional Silent Hill? So little things like that. We tried to appeal to the Silent Hill fans and ourselves as much as possible.
I do love that, and I will defend that game forever.
Which game is that? Which game is that?
Silent Hill Book of Memories on the Vita.
Oh, okay. I was just curious.
Which is apparently incredibly expensive now too.
It's going up in value, yes.
Oh, really?
I can't find my copy, and I need to. I need
to buy more presents.
I need to have my roster of. I have the games right here that I've worked on, and I'm missing that one. And I'm like, oh, I'll just buy it off eBay, and it's like, oh, they went like $200 for it. So.
I'll send you mine for $180.
I might have to take you up on that.
All right. Well, cool. I guess 2 final questions. One, Jeremy.
Yes.
I'm assuming based on your Xbox gamer tag, that is an Alan Wake reference.
It is. A lot of people would confuse it for something else entirely. I keep getting like, oh, is it from Final Fantasy? I was like, no, it was Alan Wake American Nightmare. It was the first time they referenced.
Okay.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, they referenced it in Alan Wake American Nightmare, and then it came back in Alan Wake 2 in a big way. And I was like, oh, yes, thank you.
Oh, so that goes back pre-Alan Wake 2, even like, oh, that's even better.
Because I loved Alan Wake 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. You wouldn't know that by looking at my collection.
You're in good company here.
Preaching to the choir. If you can't tell from our Discord avatars posted,
I did notice that. I did notice that. I'm a big fan of like Remedy stuff in general. Max Payne 2 is one of my favorites. I over time I became Max Payne 3 in my own life. But
it happens to all of us.
But yeah, no, Alan Wake American Nightmare starts off with a fake like Twilight Zone, their Night Springs episode, and then they reference Alan Wake as the Champion of Light, and I was like, ooh, what an awesome name! I quickly got that gamer tag.
That's why I was surprised. I was like, he got that early, I guess.
Yeah.
Jeremy is also across all of WayForward. Typically does all of our achievements and trophies and stuff, and this was no exception. So yeah. What was your thinking going into this? I mean, obviously you have less flexibility because we can't hook in codes anywhere. But what was your approach for the achievements and trophies on ClockTower?
My general approach in any achievement trophy, it's like standard for progression. Certain ones for progression, certain ones to kind of point the user to do something they wouldn't have ever thought to do. In this game, obviously, there are more limitations, but I mean, we tied them all to like branching paths. Like, I mean, there is one for looking out the window that you probably shouldn't look out of. But you also, if you're going for all endings, you're going to get it eventually anyway.
And I think one of them is also ending the game super early, right?
Yes, there is, and it's a reference to like one of the track names for the actual soundtrack, the original soundtrack. There's 4 Resident Evil references in the achievement list. Every single game I try to add one in there. There might be a few games where actually Champion of Light is achievement as well before Alan Wake 2 came out. So perfect timing.
Yeah, everybody's got to go look for that.
Yeah, it's the first thing I noticed when I was scouting you out when you joined the Discord. But no, I think you guys have been great. Like, actually super fun to listen to and talk with. I guess, just before we wrap it up, I'm going to leave the floor to you guys just to... If there's anything else you wanted to mention about the game, yourselves, what you're doing for your holidays, whatever, just take the floor. We'll start with Adam.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having us on. We're just so humbled and appreciative to Sunsoft and Kono-san and LRG and Carbon Team that we could even do something like this, because, when we pitched the idea of this whole kind of Port Plus approach with Kunio-Tachi no Banka, the previous one, it took a lot of explaining, because it's like, well, we didn't make the game, but we want to do this, but we do want to change this and add this, and people really embraced us on that game. So yeah, hopefully this one resonates with people. Definitely, we were surprised from the announcement on the number of like reactions we get from people on social media and in person and reviews and everything, like rivals our original productions, which just blew our minds. Like, we're getting as much feedback on our ClockTower games as we are on like a brand new Shantae or River City game, which is, it shows that the audience is there. So hopefully people go out and buy it and enjoy it, and tell your friends about it, and definitely like that is a direct, it's cheesy to say, but that is the direct path for us making more of these. If this is a huge hit, both Sunsoft and WayForward want to make something new with ClockTower. So check that out and tell your friends about it if you haven't experienced it already.
Nice.
I will be preaching it from any rooftop that'll have me.
And I mean, I can't really add too much more to that. I mean, Adam said that all perfectly. And also, I want to thank the both of you for inviting us to do this. Because, it's really awesome. I always love talking about ClockTower.
Well, I'm glad you guys were here. I guess that's gonna wrap it up. Well, I guess we'll just we're not. I'm used to doing this live, so I'm like I was gonna do a whole like outro thing, but we'll wrap that up after the fact. But no, guys, you guys are awesome. Appreciate the topics, and this was actually way more fun than you guys were. A lot more fun than I was kind of anticipating.
Oh, nice.
I hope you don't take that the wrong way.
No, and I mean, we love connecting with groups like you guys connecting with the fans. So anything that you want to talk about, if you want to have any folks from WayForward back on other titles, or as we're announcing stuff in the future, just give us a shout. We'd love to line up more folks to pop on and do more of these with you.
That'd be awesome. Again, as a lifelong fan, seriously, like I appreciate it so much. Thank you guys.
Cool.
Of course.
All right. Well, hey guys, go enjoy your weekends now, huh? So, all right, guys.
I'll try to. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Happy holidays to both of you.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Wish you all the best.
Happy
Thank
holidays. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Thank you for watching the full interview with the guys from WayForward Games. They truly were a delight, and we were very happy that they were interested in coming on the show and talking with us. Now, if you'd like to see more interviews like this one, make sure you go back and check some of the previous episodes from Bucket Bites past, and make sure you subscribe for more in the future, because there will be more. Huge thanks to Josh for pulling some strings on this one and involving me in this interview. And make sure you guys check out WayForward's ClockTower Rewind. Also, check out Josh's full series, What You Need to Know, for the game, linked in the description. We'll see you guys in 2025. Happy holidays and a safe New Year's to everyone.